The Grand Dalton estate was a symbol of wealth and history, with its towering columns, intricate stonework, and sprawling gardens that stretched far beyond the eye could see. Inside the mansion, the air was thick with a mixture of elegance and melancholy. The disappearance of Alexander Dalton, the only son of Richard Dalton, had left a void that no amount of money or power could fill. It had been nearly a year since Alexander vanished without a trace, leaving the family and household staff in a constant state of anxious hope and despair. Victoria, Richard's fiancée, was a woman known for her grace and strength, yet even she could not mask the anxiety that gripped her on this particular day. The house had been unusually quiet, save for the gentle patter of rain against the stained glass windows. She moved through the grand hall with a purpose, her eyes scanning every detail, as if searching for answers hidden in the familiar surroundings. Suddenly, a knock echoed through the marble foyer. The butler, an ever-stoic presence, opened the heavy oak doors to reveal a young man standing in the rain-soaked entrance. His clothes simple yet neat, his face shadowed by the brim of a hat. The stranger looked up, and the first thing Victoria noticed was the pair of eyes deep, hazel, and hauntingly familiar. Her breath caught as a flood of emotions surged through her. There was an uncanny resemblance to Alexander, a mirror image from the past. Victoria stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper as she addressed Richard, who had just entered the room behind her. "He looks like your lost son," she said, her words trembling with a mix of hope and disbelief. Richard's normally composed demeanor cracked as he studied the young man. His heart pounded wildly. Memories of Alexander's laughter, his childhood antics, and the pain of his absence, all rushing back at once. The stranger removed his hat, revealing a face that was strikingly similar to Alexander's, but with a hardness and weariness that spoke of unknown hardships endured. The young man introduced himself as Daniel, claiming no recollection of his past but carrying with him a family heirloom that sent a chill through the room. A signet ring, intricately carved with the Dalton family crest, a piece Alexander had worn since childhood. The ring was worn and tarnished, but there was no mistaking its significance. Questions swirled in the air. How could someone so like Alexander appear out of nowhere? Why did he have the ring, and yet no memories of the Dalton name or family? The household staff gathered silently, their eyes filled with curiosity and apprehension. Whispers spread through the rooms like wildfire, each person wrestling with their own version of hope and skepticism. Richard, ever the pragmatist despite the turmoil in his heart, insisted on caution. He arranged for Daniel to stay in a guest suite while they began the process of verification. DNA tests would be conducted, and memories would be probed gently, seeking fragments of truth buried beneath the stranger's amnesia. Victoria remained by Daniel's side, her presence a steadying force amid the storm. She found herself drawn to him not just because of his resemblance to Alexander, but because of the glimpses of vulnerability and confusion in his eyes. There was a kindness that seemed genuine, a silent plea for understanding. As days passed, Daniel struggled to piece together his identity. He pored over photographs of Alexander, listened to stories of the boy's childhood, and attempted to recall even the smallest detail of favorite song, a hidden garden spot, a family joke. Some fragments stirred faint echoes in his mind, but nothing concrete. The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath, caught between the past and an uncertain future. Friends and relatives arrived, each offering their own opinions, suspicions, and advice. The media began to circle like vultures, sensing a sensational story. The pressure mounted, and tensions flared. One evening, as rain lashed against the windows and thunder rumbled in the distance, Victoria sat beside Daniel in the drawing room. She handed him an old photo album, its pages filled with memories, frozen in time. "Look closely," she urged gently. "Maybe something will come back." Daniel traced a finger over the images: a young boy running through the garden, a family portrait with smiles that seemed frozen but alive, his eyes welled with tears he couldn't explain, a mixture of longing and loss. For the first time, he whispered, "I wish I could remember." Richard watched from across the room, his gaze conflicted. The hope that this was his son warred with the fear of being deceived. The ring on Daniel's finger glinted in the firelight, a symbol of legacy and mystery intertwined. As the night deepened, the house settled into uneasy silence. The stranger who looked like Alexander had arrived, bringing with him questions that would unravel the fabric of the Dalton family. Victoria's words echoed through the halls. "He looks like your lost son," What happened next would shock everyone and change their lives forever. Asterisk the days that followed the young man's arrival at the Dalton estate were filled with an uneasy mixture of hope, skepticism, and restless anticipation. Richard Dalton, a man who had long mastered control over his vast business empire and personal affairs, found himself struggling to navigate the whirlwind of emotions stirring inside him. Was this stranger truly his lost son Alexander, returned from the shadows of disappearance? Or was this an elaborate deception, a cruel twist of fate meant to shatter what little peace remained? Asterisk DNA testing was ranged without delay. The sterile laboratory, with its humming machines and clinical precision, seemed a stark contrast to the storm raging within the mansion's walls. Victoria and Richard waited anxiously for the results, the silence between them heavy with unspoken fears and fragile hopes. The young man, Daniel as he called himself, had been cooperative but remained guarded, as if the uncertainty about his own identity weighed on him just as heavily. Asterisk when the results came back, they were inconclusive, close, but not a perfect match. The genetic markers suggested a familial link, but there was enough discrepancy to raise serious doubts. It was a blow to the family's collective hope, yet it also deepened the mystery. What could explain this anomaly? Was Daniel related to Alexander in some unknown way, a cousin, perhaps, or was something more sinister at play? Asterisk as the family grappled with these questions, Daniel began to show signs of connection beyond mere appearance. During quiet evenings, Victoria would sit with him, sharing stories of Alexander's childhood tales of a secret treehouse in the garden, a fondness for a particular lullaby their mother used to sing, the way he used to hide in the library's alcove to read adventure novels. Asterisk one night, as a storm raged outside, Daniel sat beside the fireplace clutching a worn music box that played that very lullaby. His eyes filled with tears, and for a fleeting moment, he whispered words that sent a shiver through Victoria. I remember. I think I remember. Asterisk these fragments of memory, however, were incomplete and sometimes contradictory. Daniel struggled to piece together a past that felt just out of reach, like a half-forgotten dream. His confusion was mirrored in the anxious faces of the household staff, some hopeful, others wary. Asterisk meanwhile, beneath the surface of these emotional reunions, dark currents began to surface. The Daltons were not the only ones interested in Daniel's true identity. A private investigator, hired quietly by Richard to uncover the truth, brought disturbing news. Daniel's past was not blank as he claimed. There were records of a man matching his description, involved in a series of incidents, false identities, financial fraud, and connections to a bitter family feud involving rival factions within the Daltons' business empire. Asterisk the revelation hit the family like a thunderbolt. The warm hope they had nurtured now turned into suspicion and fear. Had they been deceived? Was Daniel an imposter sent to destabilize Richard and seize control of the Dalton fortune? The media caught wind of these developments, and rumors began to swirl like wildfire. Asterisk just as tensions reached their breaking point, an even greater shock awaited. The real Alexander Dalton, alive and well, stepped forward from the shadows. He had been living under an assumed identity in a remote town, protecting himself from enemies who sought to destroy him for exposing corrupt practices within the family business. Asterisk his sudden return shattered the fragile peace. He revealed the depths of the conspiracy that had forced his disappearance, the betrayal of trusted allies, the dangerous rivalries, and the lengths to which his enemies had gone to silence him. The man known as Daniel was, in fact, a pawn in this elaborate game, manipulated into playing a role he barely understood. Asterisk in a tense confrontation at the estate, the truth spilled out like a torrent. Loyalties were tested, accusations flew, and the very foundation of the Dalton family was shaken. But amidst the chaos, love and justice began to mend what had been broken. Asterisk Richard embraced his real son, tears streaming down his face, while Victoria stood steadfast by their side. Daniel, no longer an enemy but a man lost and used, found a chance at redemption through honesty and remorse. Asterisk the story that had captivated everyone with its twists of identity and deception ended not with ruin, but with the unexpected power of forgiveness and the unbreakable bonds of family.